my job really was to guide people in that journey from your head to your heart.
So, how do you know that when is your heart speaking or when is your head talking?
Every experience is this opportunity to know and express love on a grander scale, to express your true self, your authentic self.
Welcome to Mastery Podcast, where entrepreneurs and experts uncover the truth about health, wealth, and personal mastery. I'm Dr. Sas, and together we dive deep into strategies that elevate your business and well-being beyond mainstream advice. Get ready for powerful stories, expert insights, and transformational knowledge. Welcome back to Mastery Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest who has spent over 50 years helping people transforming their lives through self-love and energy healing. Joining me is Marcy Neumann, also known as the HeartShift coach. She is a spiritual guide, a counselor, a minister, and hypnotherapist specializing in past life regression. Marcy has created award-winning manifestation products, launched transformational programs, and even hosts multiple shows and podcasts like Live with Marcy and Amy, The Heart Center Woman, and the High Vibe Tribe. That's a long name, Marcy. But I'm not done. Marcy have done a lot through this 50 years of career. And Marcy also is a founder of Self-Love University and a featured teacher in the upcoming TV docuseries, Navigating the Clickety-Clack. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But today, we are diving into self-love, energy healing, and how to shift from self-sabotage to self-empowerment. And wow. Welcome, Marcy. I want the intro to be shorter, but it won't do any justice. So
Oh, thank
want to
you.
say all that and welcome. We are really honored to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sass. And, I'm honored to be here. I consider this my greatest joy. I love sharing everything that I've experienced, as well as the wisdom that comes from life experience. And I think that, that's something that our audience really needs to hone in on, that life is meant to enrich us and to take us to places, not just physically, but internally, to places where we don't even know they exist until we start to experience them. And so everything that I've experienced in the last 50 years of my professional life has really been a reflection of that, just my own life.
Wow, wow. Now, Marcy, thank you so much for that. And we talk a little bit before this. We go hit record button, right? And you reminded me that just what you say. There are days that we are busy. There are months that seem to be longer than a month. It seems to
Yeah.
be a year sometime, and especially when you're trying to build something and you hit the ground running and you're just like busy all day long. And you remind me that, yeah, just enjoy
Yeah.
and look at it as a blessing. And I appreciate that. And you've been guiding people through self-love journey and energy work for the past 50 years. Can you share a little bit about what led you to this path?
Well, my path, I think, is something that I've always been on. And I think, for most of us, that's true. So as a child, I had an awareness that I was part of something greater. I wasn't just that child that everybody else saw. And in fact, I've been described as a child as sort of being, like a pain in the neck, right? I asked a lot of questions. I was very precocious, but I also, even as a child, had this wisdom, knowing what I was connected to. And I also had had a number of past life sort of spontaneous experiences where I saw myself in different scenarios, different gender, ages, et cetera, et cetera. And for a child to experience that, you start to believe that everybody else is experiencing it as well, right? It's just part of a natural, normal existence. But what that did is it helped me to develop this perspective about my own expansiveness. And so, when I became a teenager, I was very much that person that people went to. And then I started to become that go to person for some of my friends' parents as well. They always wanted to know, well, what do you think about that, Marcy? What's your perspective? And so, what also developed was my ability to tune into other people and this deep knowingness about what it was that they needed to either experience or to hear so that they could know themselves as expansive beings. And so, it was interesting. I had such a funny experience that took me to nursing school. I actually went to nursing school um, because I had a lot of fun at a party where there were a lot of nursing students, medical students, interns, etc. And I said, wow, I'm going to nursing school too. And what happened was while I was there, I started to really connect to this knowingness that there was something outside of the conventional medicine that was involved in healing. And so I entered into a special program, an ordination program, and I became a spiritualist minister at the very same time. And so I was trained in hands on healing, mediumship, channeling, and what we now know as energy medicine. So my entire professional career has been as a liaison, a bridge between those two worlds, and of course has evolved as I have evolved.
Yeah, beautiful. And my background is in pharmacy, and I also saw firsthand that there are limitations to conventional medicine. There is
Yeah,
more than what um what we see in the
that's
conventional
right.
medicine, right? We have a lot to grow into still as a country when it comes to health. And I love talking to people like you because you're you're in the same wavelength as I
Yeah,
am, because I study all this stuff, but not at the depth that you have done, of course, but I know of them, and I have followed different teachers. And to hear someone who is living and doing this and actually helping people experiencing themselves in a higher level is
yeah.
is amazing. So I'm just so super happy to talk to you
Oh.
today.
And
So
again, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
you're welcome, and thank you. And you also call yourself a heart shift coach,
Yeah.
right, Marcy? What
Mhm.
exactly is heart shifting, and why is that important?
Great question. So, what I've come to realize is that the lives that people are yearning for, very often um, they attempt to create them by following a thought pattern that they believe will get them to where they want to go. In other words, there are goals. There is, this roadmap that they set out for themselves. I'm going to do this by the age of 23. I'm going to do this by 30. I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And of course, what that does is it immediately constricts life because whatever you believe is what you create.
Mhm.
And so, what I came to understand very quickly, and this came actually during my nursing career, particularly, I was working in post open heart and neurosurgery. And what I found is that when people were put in these positions, sort of at death's door, they suddenly allowed themselves to be more expansive, to ask more questions. And what I found, of course, is that every time, 100% of the time, that inquiry always led them to their heart. So what I realized is that my job really was to guide people in that journey from your head to your heart. So rather than trying to create something from just your mind, which is the ego's domain and which will thwart every effort if possible, right? What's really necessary is that we start to live from the heart and then feed the mind from that perspective. So the heart always knows what it's yearning for. It knows what we're doing here. It knows our mission. It knows our divinity, right? So when you start to put the heart in the forefront, it feeds the mind and the voice becomes distinguishable from the voice of the ego. And I hope I'm not like going too far out here, but I really want people to understand that this is what's inside of them. So what heart shifting is when we, utilizing our free will, this is a free will universe.
Mm-hmm.
When we draw from our free will and we say, okay, does that thought have the potential to create what I want? Really? We bring that thought to the heart and we ask the heart, here's what happens. The heart is the only aspect of us that has the capability of truly creating because it's our divine ability. And so when we bring the thought then to the heart and say, okay, what do you think about this? The heart always answers and it says, well, on its own, no. Doesn't have the potential to do that. But come with me, partner with me. And here's what happens. The light of the communication of source energy, the divine aspect of us, will start to infuse those thoughts with light. And when that happens, the vibrational frequency of it is raised. So it's actually the energy is recalibrated. And we take it into a completely different frequency that now does have the potential to create what it is that we really want to experience. I've so much appreciated A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yes.
but okay, so
I did the whole 365 lessons.
oh, fantastic. So this will totally make sense to you, but there's an aspect where it says there are only two things, two experiences in life, and they fall under these two categories. It's either a call for love or an answer to the call. When you start to look at life through that lens, you are constantly asking, okay, is that a call for love? Meaning, is that a thought that has been influenced by the ego and knows that it's hopeless out there on its own?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it coming from my heart, which is the answer to that call? So that's how I look at everything. And that's what I teach my clients.
So how do you know that when is your heart speaking or when is your head talking?
Yeah. It's so simple. It really is so simple. We fight ourselves on this, but here's the difference. Remember, the ego's purpose in its own mind is to protect you. So what does it do? It wants you to stay hiding behind the couch. It doesn't want you to come forward and experience life differently. It wants you to keep doing things the same way, stay safe, stay with the same people, stay living in the same place, all of that. So what's its most powerful tool is fear.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you experience fear about moving forward, about evolving, about expanding, about taking on a different belief system than what you've been programmed to believe, anything that you go to reach for and you feel that fear rising up, that's the impact of the ego. That's the ego's voice that will always be whispering in this very loud crescendo if it needs to. It gets louder and louder and louder. And it says, oh, remember when you tried that last time? Remember you were 10 years old and you fell off your bike and you cut your knee and so it gives you all these scenarios, these reminders that would imply that you are a failure, that you're not enough, that you're not smart enough or funny enough or pretty enough, or you're just not enough. And if it needs to, it's going to remind you, you're also not lovable enough.
Mm-hmm.
You're not deserving enough. Who do you think you are to do that? Your higher self, your divine self, on the other hand, knows that's why you're here. You're here to experience all these things because in every experience is this opportunity to know and express love on a grander scale, to express your true self, your authentic self. And so it just stays in a whisper and it just says, follow me. Follow me. Now, you will need to cultivate some courage to do that because that ego, like I said, if it has to, it's going to be throwing all kinds of tantrums, right? To distract you, and it produces smoke screens of all kinds. But the higher self, the divine self, just stays steady, just like this. It just says, follow me. That's it. Just follow me. And so what we typically do is we go in and out, in and out, in and out in this like a rubber band effect. And so when we become accustomed to what I say is the ability to discern the voice, now, no matter how the ego disguises itself, I can tune in because I know the feeling of the higher self, of my divine self. And for me, I experience that as freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's peace, underneath my peace, I have a sense of freedom. If it's joy, underneath that joy, I have a sense of freedom, right? I'm like full on expressing.
Yeah.
If I am feeling abundant, underneath that, I'm free. Abundance offers freedom. So every step along the way, what I've learned to do is I use freedom as my benchmark. I know if I'm feeling free, the ego is off doing other things, okay? Which is probably momentary, but that's okay. And I have aligned with that divine aspect of me that only wants me to be joyful, happy, free, peaceful, abundant. And that is the energy of creation. Now, here's the other thing. So, this is also like how insidious the ego is.
Now, how? I mean, it's so easy for you to say because you know how it feels and you know
Yeah.
how to get there. And for most people living in this like really busy world, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have cell phone, we have electronics, we have work, we have kids, we have, husband and wives and all this
Yeah.
noise that we respond to. How
Mm-hmm.
can we quiet our mind enough, quiet the ego enough that we can hear the love energy that we are?
Yeah. So I believe, number one, in cultivating a daily spiritual practice.
Mhm.
And by the way, that's different for everybody, right? And your job as knowing that you're here on a very sacred mission, and every single one of us is, right? We're here to express love and to create with love. That's it. But we all have a unique style. We all have a unique expression of that. And so our job is to go into this journey of, I say, intimacy, into me, see. And what I do is I make certain that I am always seeking that energy of freedom, which means one day meditation might not be it for me. One day it might be going out for a walk. One day it might be, just doodling. One day it might be speaking on the phone to my friends. In other words, I'm seeking the energy of freedom because in my intimate journey, that has become my benchmark. So you need to find your benchmark. What serves you? What brings you into your center? How do you feel the most connected to the divine within you? You must make the connection every day, but you can decide what that looks like and how you experience it.
Well, what do you think is a problem with a lot of people where they cannot express love to themselves and they become unselfishly kind to other people, but during the process they are really horrible to themselves? Why is it so hard for people to be kind to themselves?
Oh my gosh, what a fabulous question that is. Thank you so much. So, what has happened is, remember, I said the ego is a master of disguise. It will use whatever means possible to divert your gaze from you being a divine creator. So, what it does is it taps into that energy as a child where you perhaps were led to believe that you weren't lovable, you weren't deserving of love, you didn't get the attention that you needed. I grew up in a family of 8 children. I was the eldest daughter. Trust me when I tell you, I can totally relate to this. Okay. But as an adult, and I have a course in Self-Love University, it's on spiritual accountability. And it comes from the processing that I realized I needed to create for myself, because just because that programming, that conditioning was instilled within me, there was no way that that conditioning could create the life that I wanted. So I was the one who needed to change it, which meant I needed to be able to see that ego's influence. Now, you talked about, people who are constantly in the outside, right? Looking for validation, right? Looking with all of their kind works and, they're seen as martyrs and they sacrifice and this and that. And what they are doing is actually sacrificing their divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go back to A Course in Miracles again, it tells us that this divine source within us would never ask one to sacrifice themselves for another, because we are all equal in its heart and in its mind.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about your Self-Love University. What is it and who is that for?
It's so selfloveuniversity.com is a container for different digital courses where I talk about different aspects of self-love that need to be cultivated. We need to have a greater understanding of what self-love is. Number one, most people believe that self-love is self-care. So they think, okay, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to get a pedicure, a manicure, I'm going to get a massage, all of that. That's loving myself, right? It's actually self-care. And the reason that the distinction is so important is that self-care is anything that you do that makes you feel good, makes you feel, it softens, it comforts you. Dr. Sass, self-love is on the other end of that spectrum. Most of the time, it doesn't feel good because it's taking you out of your comfort zone. So self-care keeps you in the comfort zone, and the ego has you convinced that that's self-love. But self-love is when we step out of the comfort zone. It always requires that we are letting go of some aspect of our programming that's keeping us separate from being all that we came here to be. It keeps us separate from our divinity. So, what are those things? And these are the courses that I've created. So, it's spiritual accountability, recognizing spiritual accountability. You know, so many people have fear that they'll be punished, right? If they
Right.
say, oh, yeah, I did that. You know, no, spiritual accountability is recognizing our humanness, you know, on this path of integrating our divinity. That's what we're doing here. There are, you know, courses on self-love. What is it? You know, how do I start the heart shifting process? And so everything in there is really bringing the focus back to the self. And again, it's peeling back the layers, not to diminish anyone in any way, but rather to celebrate and to truly embrace what it is that we are doing here. We are here learning to love ourselves as divine beings, having these incredible experiences, pretending to be just humans.
It's just like a game of life, right?
It's a game. Yeah.
And
So,
kids
yeah,
go in there and they play it online and on the computer and stuff. It's basically, are you gonna beat this game of life? Meaning,
right.
are you happy living your life,
Yeah.
right? And I I want to go back to the part where you say loving yourself not always it doesn't always feel good.
Mm,
And I've never heard anyone say that before. And this kind of give me a different perspective
mhm.
of self-love. And I thought always self-love is something that make you feel good,
Yeah.
right?
That's what the ego
If
wants you to believe.
it's the self-care and all this stuff. And you're right. If you really follow who you are, and you got me thinking, it is uncomfortable. Because if you think, if you know and you know that you are capable of doing something and your ego want to keep you safe, right? Its job is to protect you in the 3D world from the lions and tigers and
That's
bears and,
right.
and, and all those stuff. And I'm just so interested on how you say that it actually make you feel uncomfortable because it you have to break through the fear, right?
May I share a story?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm going to make it as short as possible. Um, so I shared with you that as a child, I had had a number of past life experiences where I saw myself differently. And one of those was I had a number of them showing myself to me as a Native American.
Mhm,
And so back in the early 2000s, I was out in Montana at a family party, and it was actually a party for my niece who was getting married, but it was also my 25th wedding anniversary. And so we were surrounded by family, and my four kids were there, and they had presented us with this beautiful memory book, and it was just absolutely magical. And because I had this affinity to the Native American, I'm at a party and I see in the back yard this authentic teepee. So, of course, I snuck out of the party as fast as possible. And um, I went back there and I remember like standing in it and feeling this very cosmic connection. And I pulled back the ceiling flaps, and it was as if the night sky just filled the teepee. And I decided to lay down on the rugs. And I'm lying there thinking, you are the luckiest person in the world. You have everything and anything anybody could ever want. You have this wonderful marriage and life of travel and homes and cars and all of this stuff. And you're the envy of so many women. And I'm just lying there thinking, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. And all of a sudden, like a ticker tape across my mind's eye, it says, how much longer do I have to do this, Lord? I bolted upright. I broke out into a sweat, and I jumped out of that teepee and vomited in the bushes. And in that moment, I was filled with this deep sense of dread, and then guilt, and then shame, and the thoughts started to come in. Who are you to believe that you deserve more? What could be more than this is perfect? How could you ask for more? You're so ungrateful. And like all of these thoughts coming in, coming in. But there was this other thought. And the other thought was that message came in on the highest vibrational frequency of light. And that started to really sort of, I'd be looking in both directions. Well, one thing I noticed over the weekend was I couldn't really look in anyone's eyes. I was so afraid that they were going to see me. Now remember, that is the ego's fear, that it will be exposed as not being enough. And so I went back. I was living in New York at the time, and I had, I was already Reiki master on a number of levels. I was a spiritualist minister. I'd accomplished all these things. I'd started a not-for-profit organization for Reiki practitioners. We had gotten Reiki practitioners into doctors' offices and hospitals and ambulatory centers and all these things. It was pretty amazing. And so I went back to New York, and I jumped into that community, right? Thinking, okay, this is just going to fill up whatever is eating at me, right? But it didn't. And I kept having to sweep that other voice under the rug. And I kept putting Band-Aids on all these other parts of me. And then what had happened was I had had a psychic reading about a year and a half before that. And she had given me a card of a local therapist who worked with women in transition. And at the time, I just threw it in a drawer and said, that's not me. I don't know why I have this. But that time kept coming into my mind. So I went to the drawer. I mean, what are the chances that it was still there? There was a card. And I started to work with this therapist. And it was a very short time later where it came to light so clearly that I was so unhappy in my marriage. There was no place for me. Like I said, I had Band-Aids, but my marriage was based on this level of perfectionism that I could create and maintain for my husband. There was no partnership in my marriage. It was what was expected of me. And I played that role very well. We worked together. It was, very clear that I was missing something so important. And so I told my husband that we needed to go for marriage counseling. I was really in a place I needed him to go with me, and he refused. And he refused for about a year. And then finally I gave him an ultimatum. And I said, if you do not come to this appointment, which I had made, it will be irreparable damage to our marriage. And he didn't show up. And I remember the therapist asked me, how do you feel? And I said, I feel like there's been an elephant lifted off my chest. And what happened was that then, nearly a year to the day that I had had that experience in the teepee, I was telling my husband I wanted a divorce. And what it required of me, I mean, imagine this life that I had created so perfectly, to come to this place of recognizing that I could no longer stay there, meant that I was destroying my family, my marriage, my home, our place in the community, my job, everything that defined me for almost 30 years was requiring that I step away from it. I will tell you that there were times where I would be on the floor, like in fetal position, just crying. And I remember bargaining with God, please don't make me do this. And every time I did, I would feel these arms around me. I would feel this breath come into me. And I would hear, just follow me, just follow me. And I did. I'm here with you today because I followed the voice. I would have never been here otherwise. What happened the moment that I did that? I'll never forget this as long as I live. Eventually, I moved out of my marital home and I was living in this other home, and I had had all of these medical issues that I just assumed, right, were just part of the aging process. I was in my 50s, and just part of natural aging. And I remember one day I was at my desk and the doorbell rang and I jumped up and went to answer the door. And I'm standing there and I am flushed with this energy coming through my body. And when I, closed the door and I turned around and I realized my jumping up out of my seat, I no longer had any pain in my hips that had nearly paralyzed me. I no longer had headaches that would incapacitate me. I no longer had stomach digestive issues where I could never leave my house without, some sort of Tums or Advil or something. But I had also not had any of these recurrent nightmares that I used to have, where I would wake up in a panic. And the theme was always the same. I couldn't find my wedding ring. Hadn't had any. And I realized in that moment, and I said to Spirit, I said, what has happened? What's changed? And I heard, you have begun to love yourself in a way that you never allowed yourself to before. And what happened was I just learned to put my spirit in charge. My heart is in charge. And remember, I told you that benchmark for me is the feeling of freedom. Can I be who I am meant to be with this person, with this conversation, with this place? I've, moved to many, many different places. I have just allowed Spirit to direct me, to bring me to the people who are ready to hear what I have to share. Every step along the way, it has required that I have let go of some preconceived notion that I've had about myself, about not being enough, or not being welcome, or not being lovable, or the guilt over having done this, or the shame over that. And every step along the way, we must let that go, because it has nothing to do with the true essence of our being, which is divine and is nothing but pure love. So this is what I teach, and I live what I teach. I have had so many experiences that could have taken me into a downward spiral. And every step along the way, I've been lifted up. And now it is my choice to lift myself. if I feel the infiltration of that ego energy really making its mark, I mean, I know it's there all the time, and I love you, feel loved, it's like, it's okay. I get it. That's your job. And I appreciate what you're doing. But I use it now as a roadmap for my heart. I know that if it has infiltrated, it means there's an aspect, an energetic pocket there. It's actually asking me to heal it because I'm meant to be in union with the divine within me. So any aspect of separation, I know I must move into it rather than stepping back or sweeping it under the rug. I step into it and I say, okay, show me. And Spirit always shows me right where that is. And there's only one place to heal it, and that's in my heart. So I must bring it to my heart, recalibrate that energy. And now it's available to me to create what my heart is really yearning for. And that's unity.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you for that story, and you tell it in such a way that so captivating. I feel like I'm there with you,
Yeah.
and that a great story to explain why loving yourself could be uncomfortable, and
No, 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 no. It always is
it's
uncomfortable.
always is uncomfortable. Dang it.
100% of the time, because you will disappoint someone.
Mhm.
You will fall
Yeah.
short of their expectations, what they want you to be, what they need you to be. You will 100% of the time be uncomfortable until you step over the threshold. And then the universe just sort of lays itself at your feet and it just says, here, how about this? How about that? It's like flowers. And, it's the most incredible thing.
You know what? I think you're exactly what I need right now. And I use that word sometimes because, just to protect myself.
Of course.
The ego want
Yeah.
to get in and
Uh-huh.
just
Yeah.
protect me, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's so interesting, this conversation, and I look at the time. I was like,
I
dang it! I
know.
wish we can talk a little bit more. You're definitely coming back, and
I
we'll
I
have
look forward to it.
we'll have more discussion. Well, before you go,
Yeah.
um, for people who are brand new at this self-love stuff, I know it's like a word that people throw around and they don't
Hmm.
really understand. Me, for once, I thought I know what self-love
Yeah.
is, and until you come into my life now and
Mhm.
explain it in a different way on a different level. For those people who want to take that first step, what is the one thing that you think that anybody can do to take that first step to self-love and really empower themselves to live the life that they are meant to live?
Yeah. Number one, understand that this is a free will universe. It requires your free will. So you have to be willing to step wholeheartedly into this journey. That's number one. Number two, start cultivating a deeper connection to your heart. It will never lead you astray, not ever. And number three, I've left a free gift for all of our audience, and it's an ebook, and it's how to shift from self-sabotage to self-love in 5 days. Use that book over and over and over again because, again, we're so programmed by the ego energy, right? To be in this constant state of self-sabotage. And in fact, look at all of and don't get me started, but look at all the groups, right,
Mhm.
that have been formed, like glorifying the self-sabotage. Look at the conversations that often take place, right? Particularly with women.
Yeah.
Look at how we have been conditioned to relate to each other looking for sympathy from each other, looking for pity, looking to, get this martyrism almost,
Right.
reenacted over and over and over again. So we need to cultivate this awareness that self-love is asking you only to be your true self, your true and authentic self. And there's nothing more worthwhile, because the rewards of it literally are the universe will lay itself at your feet. When you talked about, earlier, all the things that I've accomplished, it's this. I've accomplished it only because I have put my higher self, my divine self, in the forefront. I let it lead me.
Right.
And I do so fearlessly. And there are no greater rewards. You will find parts of yourself that you can't in this moment even imagine exist, because you're looking through the eyes of your human self and all of your failures and all of your not enoughness. And your divine self just says, see through my eyes. See yourself as I see you, a perfect extension of me with the same job to create with love. And so, of course, you have everything within you to do exactly that. So part of it is just this radical acceptance of our own divinity and say, show me. And it does.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this, Marcy. It's been, oh my gosh, it's been, it felt like 5 minutes talking to
Oh,
you.
I know.
And
I
it's,
felt the same way.
yeah, you've been amazing. And thank you for the gift. I'm actually gonna go grab it for myself too.
Good,
And,
good.
and for our audience. And if you
Yeah.
want to follow Marcy, we're gonna put all the link below,
Mm-hmm.
and including the
And
free gift, the
yeah,
website, and your YouTube channel. You have a YouTube channel
yeah,
called
yeah.
HeartShift TV. Is that it?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And
So
come to selfloveuniversity.com.
yeah,
You
self-love.
will be drawn to, where to start. Just ask your heart, where should I start here? And
Mhm.
it will take you right where you need to be.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcy. It's been enlightening. It's been a joy. It's
Mm.
been interesting speaking with you, and for our audience. This is what everybody needs. This is what all
Yes,
being needs.
that's
So
right.
check
Yeah.
check
Myself
out.
included. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is my own journey that you're
yeah,
experiencing. Yeah.
everyone. And I thought, I'm like, I created a self-love journey course that I put out there. And I thought, oh yeah, what am I gonna learn from Marcy? A lot. A lot.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Marcy, for
Yeah.
our
And it,
audience out there.
yes,
Please check out
thank you.
Marcy. Thank
Yeah.
you, Marcy. I wish we had more time to speak with you. You're definitely coming back. We're gonna
Great.
talk more about the current stuff you're working on, the TV show
Mm-hmm.
and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just one more thing I just wanted to
Sure.
say, for people who, if you want support and coaching, go to marcyneumann.com.
Hmm.
That's where my coaching programs are. So, so much love to you all. And again, thank you so much for providing this platform and your beautiful vibrational frequency of such light and love, Dr. Sass, because you make it possible. That's what the audience needs to understand. Um, and so, from the bottom of my heart and all that I am, I thank you for this privilege of being here with you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
namaste.
Namaste.
The light in me, see the light in you.
Yes.
Awesome.
And
Thank you
coming
so
right back.
much. Thank you so much, Marcy. We're signing off.
Yeah.
See you in the next episode. You guys share this with other people that you feel like they need to hear. And until the next episode, you guys keep mastering your life, showing up, loving yourself, and do the self-care, do the self-love. Those are two separate things. That's what I learned today. And be joyful. And I'm grateful for you all. Thank you. See you in the next episode. Bye.